build my gallows and build them high. Makes a long time climbing before I die. So I just put myself on mute there. Just going to go back to the first point that Riz had made there, which was about LG having a lack of a plan B. And I've seen that accusation sort of labelled a couple of times this season. I didn't really see it, if I'm honest with you. Last night we played a different formation to the one that we played last week. It was the formation we finished last week against Celtic, but not the one that we started with. So both of those things indicate that there's more than a plan A. And even last night, although I think Johnstone left it too late to make changes, when we were chasing the game, he changed the formation and he moved players around and he went chasing the goals, ultimately unsuccessfully. But I think how you would say he's not got a plan B. We've not played the same formation all season. We've chopped and changed at various times. So I'm not sure about that one. Again, if anybody's got a different opinion, think that Riz is right on that, just hit the wee request to speak button and we'll get you on. Also, he said Johnson's inability to time his substitutions correctly. So it'd be interesting to hear what folk think about this one, because Johnson himself last night had sort of said he'd get some criticism for not taking McGuinness off before he was sent off, given that it was about an hour in and he hadn't played much football. And what Johnson said in his justification was that he was looking at live GPS data, pitch side, which they can look at, and I think McGuinness was second top for, what were the metrics he said? It was second top for distance run, like 150 metres per minute or something. And his accelerations and deceleration stats were amongst the best in the team. So he thought that it was worth keeping him on. Obviously, we saw what happened next. And again, it'd be interesting to hear what people think about McGuinness's two bookings, because I actually thought the first booking McGuinness got was a fucking joke. And the second one probably is a booking, but it's one of those tackles that sometimes the ref will give a booking and sometimes they didn't. And I didn't think the referee really needed to send him off last night, particularly given how harsh the first booking was. But anyway, the changes for Lee Johnson, does he leave it too late? What do you think, folks? If you want to request to speak, you can come on and give us your opinion on it. I think there's been times this season where Johnson has made early changes. The Rangers game in particular stands out, where they changed it in the first half. Against Celtic, he waited to half time, but then made 4 changes. He said he could have made more. Last night, I thought he was right to take off Big Miko, who was on a booking, and given how card happy Clancy was with Hibs players last night, I think if Miko had stayed on any longer than he did, he would have been sent off as well. But you can't sub every player that's on a yellow card. Like, you need to trust your players to stay on, which is the other thing. I think that's a frustrating thing for Hibs and for Lee Johnson last night, is McGuinness was having a decent game, and then he just had that wee moment of madness, and it was a stupid, needless tackle that he's put in to get the second yellow. And ultimately, that's been one of the big things that's cost us the game. So, LG's ability to talk a good game of which we haven't seen any evidence of at any time. What are your thoughts on that then, folks? I think we've not seen any evidence of Hibs playing a good game at any time under Lee Johnson. I think that's incredibly harsh. Like, I actually thought, and folk will disagree, right? And I think what happens is folk get how to say this right, but I don't mean this in a patronising way, but I think sometimes folk let the end result and how the game turned out cloud how they view the whole game. I actually thought for like a big period of the game last night, but up until McGuinness got sent off, or maybe just before it, because I think St Johnstone made a wee change beforehand that sort of got them a bit of a foothold in the game. But for maybe the hour, 65 minutes, Hibs were well on top. Like, we were totally comfortable in the game. We were creating chances. We should have been, and this is probably the biggest criticism of the team, we should probably have been 3 or 4 up by that point. And if we had been, I didn't think there would have been any complaints. Against Dundee United, the game that we lost, we should have won that game as well if you take out the balance of chances, and we played some good football in that game. But I think there's been times this season where we've done exactly what Lee Johnson said we would do in terms of the style of play, creating chances and being on the front foot. I just didn't see how that correlates to him talking a good game and there's no us seen any evidence. But again, it's all opinion based, and it's just me giving my opinion. And if anybody else wants to jump on and give their opinion, hit the request the speak button, and I'll bring you in and have a chat about it. Sure, other folk will be interested to hear what more people than just me have to say about these things. And then the other one that I said was about Hibs being the only team in the world to ruin your weekend. It feels like it, doesn't it? Especially like a Friday night game. Friday night, if we win that, you're buzzing for the whole weekend, aren't you? Like you come away from the ground absolutely cheesing, wake up a wee spring in your step, and then that lasts all the way through till work on Monday, but it all falls apart again. I don't think we're the only team in world football away. Like every football fan has their weekend ruined by their club at some point or another. And again, whether it's something we should all be more mature about and not let a silly game of football spoil our weekends, but I'm not really into that idea. I quite like the fact that it can spoil it or make it, because I'm a big bairn. Right, let me just bring up a couple of other tweets. And again, if you want to speak, just hit the wee request to speak button. So CEW tweeted and said, I don't know about you guys, but there hasn't been one Hibs game I've enjoyed since the Lennon days. So how long ago was it that Lennon left? That was just after the first season in the Premier League. I've definitely enjoyed the game since then. I was enjoying last night up until the red card. I'll be honest. Like I was having quite a good time. I was enjoying the big crowd. I was enjoying the atmosphere. I was enjoying the way that the team were playing. I've enjoyed the games against Rangers and Hearts this season, even though we didn't win them. I enjoyed them. The Aberdeen game was good. I don't know. What do you think, folks? Do you think that's harsh, or do you think that's fair? Debbie said, or this will be conversation. This one. Debbie says, playing some really nice football, but there's still the mentality problem from the Jack Ross, Sean Maloney eras. Badly need Nisbet back to put away the chances we're creating, hopefully. And Parma Ham replied to that. The thing is, he wasn't scoring when he got injured. Appears to be a huge problem with all of our strikers. And Debbie replied, I know, but you like to assume that LJ's philosophy is more suited to his game than the last two managers. Is Nisbet the answer, folks? What do you think? He's definitely, if he can find his first season at Hibs form, then Nisbet's going to score goals. I think big Kukarevich, I'm just trying to say his name properly, is going to get plenty of goals for us as well. He should have had a goal against Dundee United. He had one chopped off against who did we play last at Easter Road? Maybe he got called offside, Motherwell. And then he scored last night. I think he's finding his feet in the league, and I think he's going to probably be sort of 10, 15 goal striker for us this season, assuming he stays fit. But we definitely need more goals for the rest of the forwards, because there's absolutely 0 point in battering teams if you didn't put the ball away, because you just leave yourself wide open to what happened last night, and you find yourself with a 1 goal advantage going down to 10 men and then ultimately losing the game. It's not really on. So I don't know what Lee Johnstone needs to do, whether he just sort of gets them in for shooting drills, or how do you fix that as a manager? I don't know. You kind of expect that if you're bringing strikers to the club, that's what they're able to do. That scoring goals is pretty much their reason for being, isn't it? So it's a problem that we need to solve. The next tweet that we had him is from William McConey. He was just actually looking for a clip of the second St Johnstone goal. So if anybody's got that, stick it on Twitter for him. We've got Trout, who said, if Pochus attacks those crosses like a centre half should, then we don't concede 2 goals. Simples. So I would say that's fair as well. There's a bit of conversation about whether or not the first goal was a foul, and I think it is a foul. Right, that's my own view. I think there's a wee push on the back, but probably not enough to become to get the free kick or to disallow the goal. However, if we apply the same rules as have been applied against us this season, for example, Juan's push or alleged push at Dundee United that saw the goal get ruled out was less of a push than that one last night. And Rocky putting his hands on Kolach was apparently enough for it to be a foul to get a Rangers a penalty at Easter Road. And if that's your benchmark, then it's definitely a free kick to Hibs. So I can sort of understand why Porteous might have felt he was justified in going down, but I would much rather he concentrated on winning the header rather than winning the free kick, and then we maybe wouldn't have conceded. We've got Heidi Pessimist. If you want to take yourself off the mute, mate.
Yeah, hi Matt. I would just like to make a quick point about the Lee Johnstone reference last night about our inability to find that final pass, that killer pass. And I think partly that has to do with the sort of midfield that we've got, who are all quite decent, who are all quite got their own sort of skills and attributes, but we seem to lack that sort of Scott Allen type to thread that sort of final ball through. And I think that would sort of we struggle to make the most of Boyle's pace as well. We're lacking that. The midfield's pretty functional, but it just seems to be lacking that kind of attribute. I think whether McGuinness might bring that in time, hopefully once he settles in and kind of loses that sort of reckless streak that he showed last night, that he might be able to kind of bring that to us. But I think we're so good up to a point, but it just seems like we fall flat too often in finding that final pass.
There was it's funny you say that. There was a pass. I think it was Chibraya made it. Second half, as we're chasing the game, and Yuan was on the pitch by this point, and he had the. He overhit the pass, or like he delayed it, and then he overhit it, or the defender cut it out or something. And I thought, fucking hell, I wish we had Scott Allen, because Scott Allen would have spotted that pass immediately and played it perfectly. I think Boyle had one where he tried to clip it through between the defenders as well, and overcooked it and put it out for a goal kick. So I think Scott Allen's the answer. I think he's tearing up in the Championship at the minute, but definitely a Scott Allen type, mate. Like, absolutely, yeah. I couldn't agree more with you. Like that, those moments last night, just thought, fucking hell, like that. If the pass had been right, we were through on goal. And probably actually the first half we had a few like that as well, where they sort of delayed the pass and went sideways rather than forwards, and.
Yeah, I think Scott Allen's kind of, unfortunately, he's kind of probably kind of past that sort of stage with ourselves, but just a player of that ilk. But as I say, I think I've got high hopes for McGuinness once he kind of gets that full match sharpness back, that he might bring some of that. I think Newell can at times, but again, he just, for me, still just that bit too inconsistent. He kind of maybe just falls out of games sometimes and doesn't quite affect him as much as he potentially can. But I think hopefully once that side of things clicks, that might help us a lot.
What do you think the answer is to the forwards no scoring? Do you think it's the service, or do you think it's because we seem to be creating chances and getting shots away, but just not getting the goals? What's your thoughts on that?
Yeah, I think without being too kind of sort of too non-committal about it, I think there's probably a bit of both there. I think there's definitely been problems with our overall finishing, but for me, even Chris Cadden last night, the cross for the goal was an excellent cross, but too often I just find that the crosses are going in, but they're a wee bit aimless. They're kind of into areas as opposed to picking out individual players. So there's probably not an easy or quick fix solution to it, but I think hopefully just sharpening up the likes of McGuinness and maybe looking to bring maybe another player of that kind of ilk that's just got that wee bit more creativity in that sort of middle of the park to help with that final pass or final ball.
Totally. What do you think of the midfield setup last night? Do you think it was harsh to drop Kenna?
I see why he done it, because I think going to the sort of three at the back, I think you're probably less inclined to have that protective midfielder. So I actually thought it worked out fine, but I've seen kind of a few people sort of say on Twitter and such like that at the point we went down to 10 men, that maybe that was the time to try and sort of shut up shop a wee bit and bring on Kenna and try and kind of see the game out. But of course, if he'd done that and we lost a goal, you're damned if you do, damned if you don't,
Aye.
But I think we didn't want to lose sight of the fact that we played well for the most part for that kind of first hour or so, but it's just that lack of final pass, final finish to give us that second goal. Because if we'd been 2-0 up at the sending off, I'd have been quite comfortable. I thought we would have seen that game out, but sitting on the 1-goal lead, you're just kind of always susceptible, I think.
I totally agree. Keep yourself available to speak if you don't mind. We'll bring in some of the other
no
conversations. Going to bring Raymond in there now. Raymond, how's it going, mate?
Morning, Matty. Fine, thank you. How are you?
Grand. Well, I say grand, as grand as you can be.
Yes, aye. It was more to address essentially the last three games. If you take it that against Dundee United, we we actually did quite well. I feel we probably should have won that game. Ironically enough, if we'd had VAR for that game, we'd probably go in and win that. Because there was absolutely nothing wrong with our goal. Let's be honest. The Celtic game was a disaster. Make no bones about that. However, I was ready to get beat at Celtic Park. So swings and roundabouts. Obviously, getting beat by 6 is worse than getting beat by 3. But a defeat's a defeat, unless it comes down to goal difference towards the end of the season. And then last night, 70 minutes of that game, we were comfortable. I would say we were probably in control of the game. Absolutely no problem. Sending off happens, and the first thing they do is back off. And I was going, lads, come on, we have to get on the front foot and don't let them take advantage of this situation. And you saw everyone to a man backing off and letting them just come forward. And I was going, you could feel it coming, and well, it didn't take long, did it?
No.
And the other thing, I'm actually going to steal Dave's thunder here. I was chatting with him last night about it, and he pointed out quite rightly that as soon as we go down to 10 men, we've got to bring Kenna on.
Yeah.
We've got to bring on a holding midfielder, shore it up, and you could have just left Boyle up top on his own. So if we are going to play that counter-attacking game, the man with the pace is moving onto the ball. Kenna shores it up in the middle, and I would wager that we wouldn't see much of a difference in the game whatsoever if that had happened.
Aye, I tend to agree with that. I think was it in Hibernian? I was kind of reading about the decision to sort of shuffle the defence about, and you sort of, I think we've spoken about it on the podcast before, when you try to shoehorn players into positions, like good players into positions that are on their own, just to keep them on the pitch. So you put Porteous effectively went to right back, I think, at one point, and he's better in the middle. Like, you could have taken, I think who the substitution would have been, but you could have taken Rocky off and kept Porteous and Hanlon as the two centre halves. But when you start moving players out of their best position, you weaken the team, I think.
Yeah, undoubtedly.
I definitely would have liked to have seen Kenna come on when we went out to 10 minutes. Just would have maybe protected the lead, because he's a big laddie as well. So you have him in the box for the crosses, and
absolutely, absolutely. The other thing as well, of course, is that if we'd scored another goal, we win that game last night. If we'd been 2-0 up and we'd conceded a goal, we would have been like, come on, let's screw the nut here. Let's get at them.
I think once it went 1 each, it felt like we didn't have anything to protect anymore. I would like to have seen the players be a bit more precious about the point. As well at that point, it's like the heads went in, which was disappointing to see how quickly they folded with it. What did you think of McGuinness's 2 bookings, Ryan?
I never got a good look at either of them, to be honest. The second one looked as though it was a booking, but having seen all this so many times previously, what tends to happen in that situation is the referee basically goes up to him and speaks to him and says, this is your third yellow, so to speak. Right, you've already done a booking, son. Do it again, and you're off. That's what tends to happen. But he just went straight for the yellow in that situation. It was the second one was. I don't think we can argue that the second one was a booking. However, previously we've come to expect that to be a talking to.
Aye, and I think some of the frustration for me last night, this is me just getting on my high horse with referees again, is he seemed awfully quick to book the Hibs players, but not quite so eager to book the St Johnstone players. And it wasn't like a particularly dirty game last night. I think we came away with 6 bookings or something.
Yeah. I'm not entirely sure. I've not looked at the stats, to be honest with you, Matty, and I've not looked it back. I I don't look at games that we get beaten. So, for instance, I've still not seen Johan's goal against Celtic. Apparently, it was rather good, but that would mean having to trawl through all the other highlights to see it first.
Aye. I'm on board with that.
Well, and I'll tell you what I did last night, because I'm an anal bastard. I sat with my stopwatch on my watch, and every time the ball went out of play, I clicked it, and I clicked it again to start it, and I did it for all the bookings, the goals. I even clicked it when Hibs scored. That's how fucking good I was. That's how much a wanker I am. And would you care to guess how many minutes that the stopwatch ran for? Basically dictating how long the ball was out of play.
So out of play last night, for both halves combined, I would say 35 minutes.
Bang on.
Oh, fucking hell. I never timed it myself, by the way. I wasn't like a...
No, you're not that sad. 35 minutes, mate, yeah.
That's mental, eh?
So, I mean, that comes back to that thing I've been advocating for ages. 2 30-minute halves, clock stops, or 2 35-minute halves, whatever, and the clock stops every time the ball's out of play. And there was a huge spike in that, the amount of time added on as soon as St Johnstone went up.
Aye. Well, they started getting cramp and stuff again, didn't they? Like when they were
it's dreadful. It's dreadful. It's almost as though when they go in the lead, they just start getting ill.
3 minutes injury time was a bit of a baffler as well, because you've got 2 goals for the VAR check after it, the penalty.
Well, this is exactly the point I was making there. So that second, I think the first half was 16 minutes added on. So whatever that is.
Imagine the fourth official coming out with a wee board and pin up 16 minutes. People think there's a sub coming. They're going, fucking, who's number 16?
No, you would only get that against a couple of teams. I think we know who that, and it would only be in certain given situations.
Hey, I'll open this up to yourself and SDG. Whoever wants to answer, or both of you want to answer it. The 2 goals we conceded, support just got a bit of criticism for it. I was thinking he should have done better with those.
Sorry, Matt. I think he undoubtedly should have done better. But I think I seen your point made last night about. I don't think it personally was a foul, but you're looking for consistency, and I would equate it to the one against Dun United that we had the goal chalked off with, that was almost kind of exactly the same in terms of what was considered a push. So I think we've been pretty harshly dealt with in that respect. But regardless of that, Porteous has got to do better, and I think just once or twice, in fact more than that really, to be honest, he has just got that tendency to try and look for the free kick as opposed to just try and deal with the matter in hand a wee bit. So yeah, certainly for the first one, I think he needs to do better. Second one, Stevie May gets a bit of a run on him, but I think Porteous needs to have that awareness, see that coming, and look to try and kind of block the run, or at least kind of get that kind of avoidance on.
I can't remember, the goals for corners or were they for open play?
First one was a corner, second one was open play. So the second one I can't quite remember, but again, it's one of those I think could we have done more to stop the cross coming in the first place, possibly.
So I think Colin was at the open training session through the week, and apparently the whole session was built around stopping crosses. Yeah. So you'd imagine Lee Johnstone will be tearing his hair out if that's who we've conceded.
Yeah, the first goal was a corner that, I don't know if you remember, but it was actually Porteous that had defended it. He was kind of pretty low down on his knees, almost kind of sticking a header just past our own post to concede that enough. Corner, which actually thought he'd done really well, because it was a really awkward situation that he kind of managed to avert. It could have easily been an own goal at that point, but yeah, as I say, I think he just needed to try and play the ball, play the situation, as opposed to kind of looking for the free kick maybe a wee bit for the first one.
What were you doing? What do you think of the 2 goals we conceded?
Can't remember them. I've blanked them from my memory, mate.
I like the way you think. This is just like a self-preservation thing, then.
This is just a therapy session. This is just fucking, this saves me spending money on someone that's professionally fucking qualified for this shit, you know.
So another thing that like when VAR first got used in the match was on first half when Martin Boyle was booked for diving. So I don't know if either you got a good look at whether or not it was a dive. It was at the other end from where I was sitting. So obviously I was hollering for the penalty and going fucking rage, but when he pulled out the yellow card,
Yeah, I mean, to be fair, everything happened up that other end, and I'm sitting in the famous five, so I've not had a good look at most of the stuff that happened. The only one I feel like I've got a better view of was our penalty that wasn't a penalty due to offside. I've subsequently seen us still showing the VAR decision on Jair, and he was offside by all accounts by the hem of his t-shirt.
A dreadlock, wasn't it?
Aye.
The interesting thing with this, right, and I don't know if either of you know the answer to this, right, and this is my understanding of how they measure offside, right? So I'm quite happy to stand corrected here, right? My understanding was the attacker, they're measured against any part of their body for which they can score a goal. So,
yeah,
shoulder, head, legs, chest, etc. If any of those parts are offside, then they're offside. If it's their arm, it's not offside because they can't score with their arm. But for the defender playing them on, it can be any part of their body. So it's not the same rule. It doesn't have to be their leg or their head or their chest. It could be their arm can play the forward on.
Not sure about the second one, but the first one certainly that is the case. Although they seem to be taking lines from doing this t-shirt nonsense, which would imply that you can score with your bicep, which would seem strange.
Well, that was only a thing when it was Hearts goal against us. They wanted to justify why it wasn't a handball. I've seen other handballs given for players handling it at that point of their since, and they mentioned that what's frustrating. These things annoy me. Like that's how sad I am. I mean, you talk about time and things, and that I clock all the time that Hibs have been had something go against them. And then every time it happens to another club and it doesn't go against them, that goes like it's mentally stored.
Well, I'm fortunate in that degree to a degree, in that my memory is so atrocious that I forget half the bloody stuff that's happened anyway. So I'm all right in that score. I think that's why it's just because I've got such a bee in my bonnet about this, like the amount of time that gets wasted, and it doesn't. That's why I did that last night. I thought I'm going to see what happens here. You know, I mean, see if we look at like those, like I say, those 3 games, right? So if we have VAR in the first game, yeah, we win at Dundee United. I'm not hearing otherwise. Celtic would get beat. Last night, we've got VAR, and it goes against us for the offside for the penalty. In which case, we would be having a completely and utterly different discussion. So the point I suppose I'm making is, are we that far off it, or have we just been a wee bit unlucky?
I think as well, it goes back to just general bad refereeing with Clancy, who, you know, anytime I've seen him, he fails to kind of impress really. But if you look at Clancy's first booking, Kukarevich, I think that's really ultimately affected our game as well. And as much as Johnston's felt compelled to take him off quite early to avoid him getting that red card, whereas the first booking for him was pretty soft. I think it might even on McGowan, which, to be fair, I wish he'd hit him harder. But I think that's a really soft booking on him. But that, again, it affects his game, it affects our team's game, the team dynamic. So this Clancy being card happy has always just kind of contributed more than VAR, I think, to the issues we had last night.
Yeah, that's fair. Yeah.
And I'm loath to blame the referee for the game. Like I think we were the masters of our own downfall last night. But
yeah,
I'm always quite happy to talk about where the referees like had an impact on the game, which I think Clancy definitely did last night. Raymond, to answer your question, you said like, are we that bad based on the last year? Have we been a wee bit unlucky? So I think if you take the Celtic game out, I think if that's fair or unfair to take the Celtic game out.
Well, let's call it a free hit. Not that I like doing that, but we'll call it a free hit.
Then I would say we were unlucky against Dundee United. Like, came had a good goal chopped off last night. Last night was more poor play. I think we're on the right tracks. This is having this conversation on Hibsnet this morning, just before I started this, and sort of saying if you look at all the sort of metrics, right, and ultimately, right, all that's important is the result. Right, it doesn't matter how good your XG is or how good your pressing game is, and all that stuff around it. Results are what matters. But to get the results, you need the performance, and the best way to measure the performance is looking at those metrics. And all of those metrics are looking good for Hibs at the moment. So, in theory, over time, we should perform well. We should get the results in the back of it. So I tend to agree with you, Raymond, that we're on the right lines. I remember Jack Ross's last season with us, when things started to go south, there was a tweet, and I can't remember the Twitter account that put it out, but they got a bit of flack, probably a bit of flack for me, and saying that the XG had Hibs well into the bottom half, like a proper bottom six side. But we were sitting maybe third or fourth at the time, and you were going, fuck off, like your XG, it doesn't matter because...
So that would suggest we were carrying luck.
Yes, exactly. That's the point I was making. But because what happens ultimately, the XG didn't change over the season, but our league position started to reflect it. Like over time, that became reflective of how we were playing. And the luck, all these fine margins, and inverted commas that Jack Ross would talk about, started going against us. And we sort of plummeted down the league, and he lost his job. And then obviously Maloney came in, and our XG got much worse, and we got much worse. But so although folk will kind of dismiss stats, I think you can point to them to say, right, we're not getting the results now, but overall, you're on the right track.
Agreed. I personally feel we are on the right track. We're doing the right things. We're creating chances. We're not taking them. That's obviously that needs improved upon. However, as long as we keep doing that, we're going in the right direction. Now, if we weren't doing that, I would be concerned. If we weren't scoring, if we were scoring the same amount of goals without creating the chances, I'd be going, "Oh, this is what's going on here." But frankly, we'd try and play the game on the front foot. We'd take the game to the opposition. For 70 minutes last night, we were in charge of that game, and then they just bottled it, which was frustrating because we were the better team.
It's really frustrating. STG, what do you think about that?
Yeah, I agree. I think you'd be foolish to kind of not see the definite signs of improvement. I was saying to the guy I was sitting next to last night, in terms of the game last season with Maloney, it was frankly pretty boring just watching the kind of team pass the ball from side to side, and the possession stats were great, but there were some games I'm sure we only had like 1 or 2 shots on goal, and it was just dire. So I think there's been a very distinct improvement in terms of both the attractiveness of what we're watching and the attacking intent there. But as I sort of said earlier, to me, it's just really that final bit of composure that's needed just to convert that kind of couple of chances. Just as a kind of sort of tangent to that slightly, what I have noticed as well, maybe in recent times, we seem to lack sort of players that are real willing to shoot for distance. Too much. A lot of our play seems to be quite intricate, try to play our way into the box, 1-2s, set pieces even. But I can't really think the last time. I think Campbell maybe obviously scored in the last minutes against Rangers to the edge of the box, but we seem to lack players that are willing and able to take sort of decent shots from distance and try and get some goals that way.
I think we'll see a wee bit more of that with McGuinness coming back. To be honest, I think he's likely to have a pop.
He had a wee pop last night, didn't he? He just kind of put it over in the first half. I think he was going for the top corner and just overcooked it a wee bit. Dave, thanks for joining on. How are you doing?
I'm good, thanks. I'm good. I watched the game on the phone last night. I wasn't able to get there. I was on holiday, but I just feel that we're still being improving. We've got 2 forwards now off the mark. We've been creating a lot of chances. Last night it was a bad combo between no taking more chances and losing soft goals. I thought the goals were like what were killing us last season, and up into the Celtic game, we were looking quite good, and I actually felt we'd be confident going into the Celtic game because our defence was looking so strong and much improved. And I just felt we lost a couple of soft goals, and I don't think we should be kind of going down quite as easy in these areas. You've got to and relying on hope that the referee's going to give you something where you've got to clear the ball first, and they're kind of like Hibs goals, I would say. or goals that traditionally we've been conceding over the last couple of years, and
Yeah.
and it isn't good enough. I think firstly, can get the job done, and then look for the referee to come to your aid. But you've got to get something on these crosses that are coming in. But I don't think it's doom and gloom by any means, and I think we've done enough in the game to get something off it. But it's just where horrible teams, kind of like Dundee, St Johnstone, they always seem to be able to unlock our defence for some reason. I think the players would just say to themselves, come on, we're not losing any of the day, let's keep it tight, we're winning every 50-50. But we just looked a wee bit soft at the back last night, which hasn't been like us this season.
I always kind of wonder, so St Johnstone didn't have, I can't mean Marshall having that many saves to make, certainly when it was 11v11, and then the couple of crosses that they got into the box that they scored from, you imagine if they had the number of chances that we had, how many goals they would score. That's what it used to confuse me when we were in the Championship. We would back the team for 90 minutes and then they'd have one attack and score with that one attack. And you go, how the fuck do teams do that against us? Yeah, we need like 400 chances to get a goal.
And we've got people that are in their ascendancy in their career, and there's potentially big contract offers and stuff, Scotland appearances, but like an old-fashioned centre-half gets something on that cross. And I'm not blaming Porteous because he's been fantastic this season and I'm a big fan.
Yeah.
But sometimes you've just got to kind of do the basics and kind of really just really get something on it and win your physical battle and no look for the referee to do your dirty work for you. But I thought we were all right. I thought Rocky looked okay, and just one of these games you look back and you think that maybe cost us third place, as did the Dundee game, or Dundee United rather. And I thought we were more than good enough to get something out of that game. But it just seems like the jigsaw's still kind of a bit mixed up, and hopefully it clicks sooner rather than later.
So if you were watching on your phone, you would have had a probably better view than any of us that were at the game on Martin Boyle's yellow card. What did you think it was a dive?
Well, I think there was enough kind of contact for him to go down. I think if it had been a Celtic player, it wouldn't have even been a talking point. It wouldn't have been a penalty possibly, but it wasn't a card, and I think it was a high-profile game, although it wasn't televised. It was a big game with VAR, and I think the referees kind of wanted to make it as much about them. But again, I had about 5 Riojas by that time as well, so I'm not really sure I'm the best one to be passing comment on that.
I think Clancy had 5 Riojas by that point as well. It's a frustrating thing. You look at it, and I think where the frustration comes is the fact that we are, in my view, I think generally playing well, and at least in spells of games, but just failing to kind of kill teams off, and then getting sucker punched with just kind of lapses in defending, because like the 6 goals against Celtic were all avoidable. Like there wasn't a great goal in amongst them. The goal against Dundee United was sloppy defending, and then the 2 goals last night were defending as well.
There's no the apathy in the team and the performance that was there the last kind of wee while. There's still kind of optimism, and you're still like edge of your seat. I mean, we're still playing reasonably good football, and we're not getting the rewards for it. But you still feel that will happen, and you're just hoping it happens in the right games when we're playing like Aberdeen's and Hearts, and we're not kind of going to take a kick into somebody, because that's bread and butter goals we lost last night, and we've got to get on it and get it sorted.
I totally agree. Interesting for the three is to get your views on Joe Newell last night, because there was a bit of kind of conflict in a couple of the WhatsApp groups around. Some folks thought he was awful, and I thought he had a great game. For the first half of it anyway, or first 70 minutes, I thought Newell was outstanding. But then looking at my phone, and folk are slaughtering him. So I think who's right and who's wrong. What did you think of Newell last night?
I thought he was decent. I think I've seen him have better games and maybe affect games a bit more, but I thought he was pretty decent. So I don't think he was the issue. But equally, I've seen folk kind of sort of lambasting McCurdy and writing him off already, which albeit he's not not done anything great so far. But if you think he's only had one start, which was the Celtic game, which I think there's a whole team worth there that never turned up. Everything else has been coming on as a sub, often when we've been chasing a game or when it's been tight. And he's also been put out wide, which to my mind, he strikes me as more of a kind of penalty box striker poacher. I'd quite like to see him up beside Kukurevich and given a chance from the start through the middle. I think it'd be worth a shot, but I certainly think it's too early to be writing him off.
It's a really good point that you make there, because I've seen that. I've seen it a few times actually. Even I suppose I'm going to call it my laddie. Like my son, we were sitting together last night, and he was slaughtering him, just saying, Ken, he's all show. Kind of comes on with his long sleeves and his socks down to his ankles, and Ken wears gloves or whatever, but he's like, he needs to concentrate more on just actually scoring goals and performing rather than try to look the part. And he was getting dead frustrated with him, and I was like, oh, fuck it doesn't really matter what they look like, as long as they perform. But I think he's definitely, what my observation is, he's definitely finding the step up a bit bigger than he maybe thought it was.
Yeah, I agree, and it's possibly I don't know whether it's physicality, the pace of the game, or just a combination of all these things. But as I say, if you think about it, though, I mean, even in terms of the lack of service, I mean, I can't really think of a great deal of opportunities that he's been given in terms of chances created for him or service given to him. So I'd like to see him, as I say, through the middle with a view to try to get him in the box to try to take advantage of some of these crosses for Cadden and such like.
I totally agree. Got the Mad Hibby on as well. How are you doing, mate?
I'm good, Matty. How are you? How are you doing?
Good, thanks. Yeah.
So I was there was three players that really caught my eye last night, and Rocky Bushiri, number one, absolutely never had a foot wrong the whole game. Absolutely fantastic for Rocky. Joe Newell, I thought was fantastic, had a brilliant game, and Kuharevich.
Hibs podcast.
Kuharevich, absolutely excellent.
He was until the booking sort of changed his game after that, didn't it?
It changed his game, but he still had a really good game.
I tell you, just to go back to your point about Rocky, there was I think St Johnstone had a break second half, and I think there were 3-on-1 at one point, and it was Rocky was like the last man back, and he almost sort of stumbled as he was going to make the tackle, but he still managed to take the ball out wide. I thought the way his decision making there was brilliant, because he had to be aware of the runner who was on the other side of him and try to kind of put himself in a position where there wasn't an easy pass, but also force the boy running with the ball out wide at the same time. I think the boy ended up getting like a shot away, but it was for like a shite angle, and Marshall managed to save it.
Rocky had a brilliant game. Rocky was absolutely brilliant last night, not a foot wrong.
What do you think of the 3-5-2 with the three centre halves? And would you stick with that to play Rocky, Porteous and Hanlon?
I didn't understand playing three at the back against St Johnstone. We should have just played four at the back, and then they would have never have got through us in the first place.
We were talking about that before the game. Thought it was a bit weird to go with.
I thought
3-5-2 for it.
I just think four at the back's mere. I understand he wants to attack. It's a big home crowd. It's a sellout, etc. He wants to play some really good football, and I get that. But it also opens up more weaknesses than what we need.
And I thought we hit the sort of the 4-3-3 that he'd been playing, or kind of like a 4-3-3 or a 4-5-1, however you would want to kind of dress up with the wide forwards. I thought we created more in that formation than we did in the 3-5-2 last night. And I don't know why he changed it, whether it was because in the back of that sort of the heavy defeat against Celtic, or because he's got other players coming available and he's wanting to play them. So like finding a spot for McGuinness, for example, or Rocky coming back in. I think if that's influencing his thinking.
Well, there'll be, as I say, when Nisbet comes back as well, then you've got Dimitri Mitchell there as well. There's got to be a lot of competitions for places. So I just hope the players can keep up the momentum regardless of the defeats on the bounce. Hopefully it doesn't get to them too much.
Aye, totally agree. Does anyone think Marshall should have done better for the first goal? That was another comment I've seen on, I can't remember if it was on Hibsnet or on Twitter. Anybody got a view?
No.
Excellent. No, you've not got a view, or no, you think you could do better?
It It was at the other end, mate. I'm not in a position to comment on it properly. You know what it's like when you're behind the goals and it's at the far end. You really can't make judgment on the sort of the depth of the ball and everything. You know.
Aye. I thought I'm up the other end as well in the West Upper, so it was hard to sort of tell whether it just seemed fairly central. I think that was the point that somebody was making, is it's going in at the sort of the middle of the goal, and so would you maybe expect your keeper to save it? But I tend to think that if it was savable, Marshall will save it.
Yes, that's my attitude. Is not a bad keeper. You know, his best keeper we've had for a number of years. So no, I don't want to start calling him out, giving him any sort of a hard time, frankly. The other thing that's occurred to me as well is we're talking about sort of players coming back. We've got Aidan McGeady there, right? You were talking about somebody that can play a pass, that can split a defence. There's your man there.
Aye, he's like the forgotten man, isn't he? McGeady's. Do you think he'll? I think why he wouldn't he? But do you think he'll see the season at Hibs?
I've no reason to think he won't. I mean, in his own words, he chose to be there. Yeah. He doesn't need to play. You know, he's like, he doesn't need money. He's not, you know, he's the one that's made the decision to come to Hibs. And he wants to play. So, yes, I absolutely think he'll play.
I had that thought. It was like, just because he's no featured, then the team will start to get settled, and whether or not there would be a place for him.
It's because everybody's got in their head that because of his love of Celtic, his heart's not at Hibs. That's you know, that's just maybe a Celtic supporter. I mean, you only going to employ boys that are Hibs supporters. Like, is that how this works?
It's a small pool that you're pulling from, then, isn't it?
Well, exactly, yeah. So no, he has chosen to be here. Yeah, he's chosen to play for the team now. Don't know what he's getting. It'll be, I tell you, it'll definitely won't be anything like he had been earlier in his career. That's for sure. No. But you know, that's fair enough because he's at the end of his career, and you know, but he can make a difference. He can definitely make a difference, especially somebody coming off the bench, or even going on and playing for 60 minutes. You know, breaking teams down. It's a nightmare to play against. A defender's nightmare.
I mean, if I would chip in on that he might be the missing piece of the jigsaw, because as much as I really like Cabraja, he's not got that skill to go by the last man or thread that killer pass. He's a great left back, but he's not that creative talent up the left side, and I think we've been struggling to find a system because we've not got that creative player.
McGeady. I can't see McGeady wouldn't play at left back. McGeady would be up the pitch. He'd be playing up in the left wing.
No, I'm not saying left back, but I think our forward play's been missing that creative player, somebody the opposite side for Boyle, and we've got like someone that can drive into the box. Or I think we've been kind of missing that side of the weakest there.
Well, the other thing as well, that Boyle, and he has my sympathy. He's not been 100%, and I'm not for a minute saying he's not trying 100%. There's something just that we sort of niggling at the back of his head. He's going World Cup. And he's just not quite there. I'm not saying he's doing it deliberately. It's just something that's happening with his game at the moment, I think. I think you'll see it with a lot of players going down, you know, especially if you go down south and to the bigger teams, the bigger players. They'll all be the same down there, you know.
I think you're... it's an interesting one, but the other thing to bear in mind, he's just had a new baby, hasn't he? So they can... when I had when my kids were wee, you were walking with like a half-shut knife the whole time because you never get any bloody sleep.
Yeah.
So you never know whether it wouldn't be the first player that have been had his performances disrupted by a bairn arriving. So a combination of it, but he's definitely. Ironically, it was better when he had a pre-season or any fitness about him.
Well, just like I was going to say, Lee Griffiths' form went off the radar when a bairn appeared on a separate note.
Is it about 300 times? Right, listen, it's kicking on for lunchtime, so I'm just going to wrap this up, guys. Thanks very much for jumping on to talk. Thanks for everyone who tweeted in. Thanks for everyone who listened. Just before we go, we're recording Longbangers tomorrow, so if you want us to include any talking points, just send us a wee tweet, and we'll talk about it tomorrow. We're also doing extra time for subscribers. In the extra time tomorrow, we're going to talk about the experiment last night that Hibs did with the £10, £5 tickets, obviously selling at the stadium, Friday night football. So we're going to talk about, was that a success? Kind of take the performance out of it and look at sort of commercially how that worked for Hibs and whether we'd like to see more of it. So if you've got any view on, like, if you went last night and you enjoyed it, you didn't enjoy it, if you thought the violin was great or shite, or do you know whatever it was about the fixture last night, would you like to see more of it? Go and drop us a wee note, and give us your thoughts, and we'll sort of collect that feedback for the episode tomorrow, and discuss it. So I'm really interested in that sort of thing, like what Hibs can do to fill the stadium more regularly, and we'll reach out to Hibs for some comment on it as well, just to fill out that episode. And if you want to hear it, as for subscribers, you can just click the wee link in our bio, and it's only £3 for the month, and you get loads of extra episodes in it. And the last thing, if you want to come and see us do Short Bangers live, it's next Friday night at Easter Road in the West Stand in the Albion Bar. There will be drink, there will be laughs. Tickets are £10 or £7 if you're a subscriber. And again, just DM us. There's a handful of tickets left, like really sparse. It's almost sold out. So if you want one, give us a wee shout and we'll sort you out. Other than that, go and enjoy the rest of your Saturday, the rest of your weekend. It's been lovely speaking to you, and we'll catch you next time. Cheers.
Cheers, mate. Bye.
County line, I pledged upon. Well, they trailed me down when I broke free. I drank all the whiskey in Tennessee.